I'm Jeffrey Paul, and I'm really excited about part 2 of this with Andrea Vecchio, the wonderful author, and so many other things, including my friend, but the author of Live Your Playlist. We did part 1. If you didn't, turn this off, go back to part 1, watch it, get the book, and this is going to be more impactful than even part 1 because we're going to talk about the pieces and parts that she put together in her life to help you put your playlist together to better your life. No matter what the ashes might seem like, there are the beautiful things that she can share with you come from those ashes. So, Andrea, thank you for being here again.
I'm so happy to be. I could talk to you all day.
Love it. I love it. Well, to kind of give a review for some of those that were, in the first segment, you talked about your heists of being, to the stars, a interviewer. You were doing production for major, morning shows. You were the host. Just amazing how you went to the top and then crashed to the audience's, awareness. As you shared with us, you lost your job. You lost your boyfriend, of which is going to be married and have children. So that dream of future left you for the moment. And then you found a lump on your back. Man, that's one after another within a 4-week window. That's almost Job's story. And, like Job, though, you came from ashes to a wonderful place. You then shared with us how wonderful it was to write a book after walking on the beach. Now, take us back to your 3 points. You gave us in the first segment 3 points. Your first point was to, and I'll just refresh that because I know you know it by heart, was, and I took notes.
That's good. You're a good student, too. A great teacher and a good student.
Always teaching and always learning. But you said, and I never heard it quite this way, but most of my mentors have said the very similar thing. Surround yourself with the people that cheer you on. But you said also at that time, close the group down and really select them, not only family, but even outside that realm, that they really were selected by you. That was an important point. Would you?
Yes, pull it in tighter. That's what I always say. I say it to anybody who's going through a difficult time. Pull it in a little tighter.
Mm-hmm. That was good. And that gave you a little bit more flow into your soul, as you said. Your soul was getting filled with people that were kind of loving you and encouraging you and, saying you don't quit. You're going to make it, even if it wasn't worth words.
Yes. That's really important. I think when you doubt yourself, you probably aren't going to believe anything positive. You can't tell yourself anything positive. So you need to hear it from people who love you. That's
right. You called it again. It was such a unique term that you called the critic within. What was the term that you used in your book and in the first segment?
Oh, ignoring your inner critic.
Inner critic.
Yes.
So important. I mean, wow. At any stage in life, it doesn't matter what age, it doesn't matter what financial, it doesn't matter what you look like. That critic is nonstop trying to really tear you down.
We manifest the positive and negative that we think about. I believe that. If you say something negative to yourself every day or going into some important moment in your life, the negative is going to happen. That's right. You think positively, you will manifest the positive.
That's it. That is. I mean, as you sow those seeds come up with the same fruitfulness that the seeds are planted. And that's really important. Then the second thing you told us about was to live a healthy life. Get on every day, even if it was as simple as just going for a walk. Mm-hmm. That really kind of gave you another outlet of the stress, you said.
Yes, I think that's really important. You need physical activity. Endorphins are our natural stress busters, and stress is a silent killer. So how better to fight that than to release our endorphins, and that's through some kind of physical activity.
That's really good. And you gave us the recommendation, hence the title of your book, Live Your Playlist, that you were listening to music. And it was different genres, and there was different rhythms of music that you said. Give us kind of a playlist of what it was. When did you play what and why?
The first part of our interview, you said, I mentioned that I listened to Eminem, and you said, you seem so unlikely. Like, here I am, just this girl from the suburbs who used to wear Keds in every color. And I found myself during really dark times identifying with some of the lyrics that Eminem wrote. And he has a song called Lose Yourself, which, by the way, if you need to stay on beat and be motivated during a workout and go like push yourself to the limit, it's a great song. But he sings about lose yourself in the music, in the moment. Those are the lyrics, he says. How often do we need to do that. It doesn't have to be rap music. It could be any genre, whether it's country or the Beatles or Barry Manilow, you know, like whatever it may be. Or if you like the New Kids on the Block or the Backstreet Boys or Christina Aguilera, or whatever it is that you love, lose yourself in the music, in the moment. And that's what happened when I would live my playlist and put in my earphones. So certainly when I was going through dark, difficult times where I needed to pick myself up and motivate myself to keep fighting toward that finish line in life, Eminem's lyrics were very motivating for me. It was not the time when I got sappy and I cried, because I don't want to have anything to do with his music when I really want to feel like that heavy pain. Right. But I think for me, it was Lady Gaga. I loved her music about, you know, we're born, the song Born This Way. Sometimes we're born to do a certain thing and to be a certain type of person, and we've got to embrace who we are, not fight it, not try to be something else. We can look up to people, we can have role models, we can say, wow, I'm really impressed by their accomplishments, I would love to do that, but you've got to stay true to who you are. I always thought that too in my professional life. Even when I was in TV, I knew when I went on the air, not everybody was going to like me. I think that's true for all of you, for you, for all of your viewers. There are going to be people who just aren't going to like us. But I think when you stay true to who you are, so I always thought that when I was in TV, I'm going to be who I really am. And so if people like me, then they would really like me. And if they don't like me, there's nothing I could do about it, because they just aren't going to like who I am. But that, and that can be difficult, right? There are so many pressures to be something other than what we are. Be your best self.
The world has a way of trying to conform us so that we think we're going to extract out of that conformity approval and joining in, and we're accepted. And, you know, we're born to want that. I mean, that's, but from the right sources. But when we conform, we lose ourselves so many times. And that really is what you said also in the first segment. The ashes, the pain that you went through created the character to find out who you really were. And you got to like yourself right now. And I don't think you disliked yourself before, but you shared with us that there was that, you know, walking in the room and not really knowing if you were good enough. Even if you had some successes. But when we conform, we lose ourselves rather than being transformed from within to really be who we were made and created to be at this point.
You hear a lot that phrase of being your authentic self. A lot of people in the self-help industry will talk about that. But you hear it so often because there is truth to it. Sure. When you don't say what you really think, when you aren't being who you truly are, you're not going to attract what you want. If you want a job at work, say you want it. Don't try to pretend like, oh, well, I'll take this or I'll take that. Maybe I'll work my up. Say what you want. Yeah. If you're in a relationship and you're not happy about the way that someone's treating you, say it. And if they leave, then you didn't want them to begin with. You don't want people in your atmosphere who don't want to be there. You don't want to work in a job where they don't want you. You'll never really be happy. So I think that, you know, there's that fine line about being too honest. Like, you don't want to be so honest that you're hurting somebody's feelings. Right. But I do think you want to be honest about who you are, where you're going, and what you want in life. You'll ultimately be happier with the end results.
You know, my wife taught me a lesson, as she's taught me so many lessons, and I've shared some of them with you. But this one was interesting. Early in her dating life and everything else, she was dating somebody that wasn't very good for her. And she said to her sister, when her sister said, man, why don't you get rid of that person? And she said she'd rather be with that person who didn't treat her nice, didn't treat her kindly, than be with nobody. And, you know, to get what you want, you have to sacrifice. There is no easy street to success. But I'm not only talking about success financially, also in that, but relationship, liking yourself, being the best you can be, it has a sacrifice to it. And the sacrifice is really to say no to what you don't want. And you just said it to us, and say what you want. You know, even in projecting a goal, they teach in goal setting and you know, self-help. Speak that out as if it is. And suddenly you start to see yourself gravitating to it, or it gravitating to you. That's not a fairy tale. That really is a reality of how God made us, you know, inside be able to bring things forth, but we muffle it. We hide it. We conform to everything else instead of transform, as I said, from the inside, what we really want, what we really desire, and come out. And we don't have to be mean to do that. We can do it with such grace, but still a firm, strong confidence that this is what I want, this is what I need, and this is who I am.
Yes. That story you told, though, about your wife, like back in the day, when somebody's saying you're in a relationship and they're not treating you well and you're not happy. And I think I hear it all the time. The fear is like, well, I'd rather be with somebody than be alone.
Right.
That is not uncommon. I can think of probably a time I did that in my life too, even when I was young. I can think of right off the top of my head. I think I wrote about the guy who was a real bum. And, but I remember thinking like, this person, I'm not even compatible with them, but I put all the work in and I'm comfortable and you know, you're a jerk most of the time, but I don't think I want to start over. So I'm just going to stay where I am. But the truth of the matter is when you surround yourself with positive people who fulfill your life, you're going to attract other positive things. So again, it goes back to being true to who you are, surrounding yourself with people who have similar interests, similar likes, who fill you up, who make you feel good about yourself. Because when you surround yourself with people in life, and certainly in our intimate relationships, who make you feel good, then you attract good. When you have people in your life who weigh you down, who make you feel negative, who make you look in the mirror and go, I don't feel great about myself. That person feels very worthless. You're going to attract more negative people. Negative attracts negative, positive attracts positive. It's a really simple formula. It's just difficult sometimes to make those decisions in life. But sometimes you are better off being alone. When you're alone, that you learn to love yourself more.
Well, that's a good statement. That really is a good statement, because you find out who you're loving at that point is the real person. And if it needs some change, then you work on that change, because we all have the power to change our life. You know, I always close every broadcast, every email with, you know, remember, beauty and change comes from within. It doesn't come, people think, you know, if you make me happy, Andrea, I'm going to be a happy person. Or when I get this job, and we've all done this kind of scenario, when I get this, when I get there. And it's not true, because ask anybody who's gotten there, they're not going to tell you that made them happy.
Yes.
If you're happy and you get there, you got the double blessing, because you have who you were supposed to be when you got it, and now you got what you wanted and you're enjoying life.
Yes.
So when you get it, it's not going to make you happy.
You know, it's interesting. We often are thinking about, and you're talking about like where we're going, right? Because we are always looking ahead. We want to get to that finish line. We want to grow our business. We want to find the perfect mate and have happy, healthy children. We want to project forward, right? I found something really interesting along my journey. It's a point we didn't talk about in part one, but I think it's really important to cover right now. And that is, you know, my playlist was a big part of my journey. It was this beautiful song that a country artist, Miranda Lambert, sings called The House That Built Me. And if you know it, you'll know what I'm talking about. If you haven't listened to it, you must listen to it and find a little quiet space. The House That Built Me. And what would happen when I would listen to that song was that I went back to the neighborhood that I grew up in. And I was very blessed because I had a very happy childhood. One where you got to play in the street until the lights came on, right? When the street lights came on, then you had to go home. I was in a loving, happy household where I'd walk in and you'd smell, you know, the meatballs and the spaghetti sauce cooking. Not everybody has that. But it's still important, I think, to go back to your foundation. In order to get to where you want to go, you need to remember where you came from. And so that song, The House That Built Me, talks a lot about, you know, where you grow up is not just about the bricks and mortar. There is much more story to tell from our foundation. So I needed to go back to my foundation, to the people who raised me and said, you are smart and you're kind and caring. You can be anything you want to be. And as we grow in life, people plant seeds and tell us that we can't be anything we want to be. Or we plant our own seeds of doubt. So I needed to go back to that foundation. For me, it was my mom and dad, and remind myself that people who spent decades raising me saying, you can be anything you want to be.
Mm-hmm.
You have so much to contribute. And they would remind me about what my strong qualities were. I thought, I can't let some Yahoo who broke me down or hurt my heart, who only knew me for 3 months or a year, maybe 2 years, break down what two people who spent decades with me tried to build. So I went back to that foundation. I went back to a place of happiness for me. And I just spent time breathing in the air of my neighborhood, spending time in the house where I was raised and had happy memories. There was something about connecting with my youth, the city that I came from, my old playground, right? I really believe that sometimes we need to get in touch with our foundation and remind ourselves of who we were raised to be.
Let me tell you a story. Zina, of course, was born in Italy and had a terrible childhood. I mean, loving parents, but they left. They came to America and left them back there, and they thought they were abandoned because they were kids. And she would sit on this little chair, which we have a replica in our home to remind her of that, because we went back to Italy because it created a terrible broken mirror in her, and it's part of many things that I teach when trying to have people come out from within themselves that had not had a good background, a good understanding, or misunderstood what took place in their life, as in Zina's. But it created a whole life, her first segment of her life, awful. From depression to, not feeling like you're beautiful, all those things. But in turn, going back, like you said, she went back to where that little chair that she would sit and cry night after night for her parents, and went back there and then was able to look where she's at now. And she realized, and this was her own statement, she realized that what she went through is why she is who she is, much like you talked about earlier in the segment before. But the reality is that she now could see that. She could really see she wasn't there. She really wasn't abandoned, but that's what she felt and consciously thought about. But then it took work to get through the process of breaking that out of that shell, out of that cocoon, into a real transformation of, you know what? I have the power to change my life. I have the strength within me. And whether someone believes it's God or if they believe it, it's the inner spirit of life itself, it really is your destiny to take your life into your hands and to really mold it and transform it in the way that your playlist that motivates you is called you to be. And Andrew, you said it. If you want something, I'm going to tell my audience right now, go get it. Go after it with all your might, with all your strength, because how many people, especially women that live a whole life and never, ever accomplished their dream, never really reached out and took a hold of it. It breaks my heart because, going to the cemetery and you see that date, with 1 year to the next, that dash in the middle is the difference of what you do in this life. And if you really take the power to take that dash between the day you're born and the day you leave this earth and make a difference, it's a good life. It is.
And you said it. A lot of people have dreams. We're all dreamers.
Oh, yeah.
Are you just going to be a dreamer? Or are you going to be a doer too?
Oh, yeah. I'm writing that down again.
Okay. I remind myself of it all the time because we all have wishes that we want, things that we say, oh, I always wanted to go skydiving. I always wanted to write a book. I always wanted to start some type of a business. Sure. We dream it. We see it. We don't do it. And it takes hard work. And it takes persistence and resilience. And you have to be aggressive sometimes. And you take yourself out of your comfort zone. But you never regret it then because at least you did it. You tried. And some of the most successful people fail and then they try again. I'm dating someone now and he's the smartest person I ever met. And sometimes when I think of ideas of things I want to do and then I'll get in my own way, I'm like, oh, but how am I ever going to accomplish that? He said, well, if there wasn't somebody who thought that we could get around in ways other than a horse, we would never have cars. So somebody dreamed up a motorized vehicle and made it happen during a time when that didn't even exist. So, sometimes you've got to be a doer if you want to accomplish things. Otherwise, they're just ideas. Otherwise, it's just a book that sits in your drawer and nobody ever reads it.
That's right. And, we're all books. We all have a story. And for the listening audience, they all have a story. It may not be bestseller lesson in New York, papers, but the reality is it is important to somebody, and it's most important to us. To write our book is really, there's a saying, and I can't remember the quote exactly, but it says that as you write your life through the words that you speak, through the actions that you live, you write a story that others will read. And if you write a story that inspires and motivates others, you've changed even one life, you've lived a good life.
Yes, isn't that beautiful? And I know you encourage all of your viewers and people who you work with to write down their story or write down their thoughts. Writing is very healing. A really good friend of mine is a great and well-known psychologist. And I remember when I was going through some of my difficulties, she said, I want you to pull out a picture of yourself as a little girl. And I want you to look at that picture, and I want you to write a message, write a note, write a letter to that little girl of what you hoped for her. It's a really emotional experience to go through. Wow. Because as an adult, sometimes we make decisions that we're not proud of. When we go through difficulties in life where we have to make choices, and we can look back and go, well, maybe that wasn't the best choice, but you sometimes have to own it, right? But to look back at ourselves as a child and say what you wish for that person, and then you move forward and you try to make choices moving forward that fulfill what you wish for that person.
Oh, that's beautiful. That in the 21-day makeover program that I do, it's interesting. There's an exercise that we go through, and we have you write down all of the hurts, all of the pains that you can imagine. And that sometimes takes some people a lot of digging, of which sometimes they don't want to do. But the exercise is just as valuable as the one that you said about, fulfilling the dreams. We write those down, and then we take a match and we light it and burn it. And we go out and pass the ashes into the air. And really, we're cleansing themselves from the past, because the past doesn't have to dictate your future. You've heard that. And there's an illustration over and over again that runs in my mind of how an elephant, and how big elephants are, there's an elephant training process that they take that little cub when it's about 200 pounds, and they stake a strong chain into the ground. And it fights because it knows it's supposed to be free. And it fights and it fights and it fights until one day, a defining moment accepts that they're captivated. That elephant grows to 4,000 or 5,000 pounds, able to knock over trees, but is still sustained and trapped with the chain that could never really hold them, but they've consciously given up. And so whether somebody gives up in a running race, like we talked about in the first segment, or like you would have given up in the fetal position of going through all of the issues hitting you all at once in 4 or 5 weeks, or someone who just is allowing the chains of their past and the circumstance of the past to hold them captive, it's time for them to break out. Would you agree? I mean, it's time to break the chains and get life. Get life.
I'm sure you talk about this in some form, but there's another exercise that I believe in, and I practice it every night before I go to bed. And you can do it during the day, in the morning when you wake up, but at some point, the art and the practice of gratitude is really important.
Yes.
Especially when you go through pain, when you go through your day and it was a bad day, you had a bad hair day, somebody didn't treat you really well. It's just some like irritations. Maybe it was just like traffic was terrible or you got into an accident. But to practice the art of gratitude helps you focus on the positive things that happen during the day rather than the negative. So every night before I go to bed, I say 3 things that I'm grateful for. Maybe it's something as simple as I just had an awesome conversation with Jeffrey Paul today. And hopefully we help somebody too in the process. Or earlier today, I had an awesome iced tea. That iced tea was so refreshing. It tasted so good. Whatever it may be. And some things will be bigger than others. But even if they're small, whether they're small or they're big, you're focusing on something positive, and you'll know any successful person in this world will always talk about how they practice the art of gratitude. So it's an easy little task to do. I noticed that it was palpable, the change it made in my life when I started doing it after I went through my difficult period of time.
But you were exercising a muscle. That muscle of gratitude is a muscle. It's an internal soul-driven muscle that you almost have to fight. And I'm sure you found this fight when you're going through the jungle of ugliness. You have to fight to find something that is good. I teach the process of an exercise just like that, but I ask them to look in the mirror. Look in the mirror and look right into your own eyes, because the eyes are the window of the heart, and the ears are where the faith and belief comes from, because what we heard when we didn't like, we took those seeds in. But speaking to yourself right in your eyes and giving some gratitude, both for yourself, like you said, or that iced tea, all of a sudden it becomes a little easier and a little easier. And now it doesn't matter what the day brought or the circumstances brought, but I think there's another miracle that takes place. Suddenly the days get to be better and better. Didn't you find that to be true?
Absolutely. It just changes your perspective. Mm-hmm. It changes the language and your tone. Mm-hmm. To spin it into something positive. You stand a little taller, your shoulders go back a bit, and you feel lighter. Yeah. When we think about everything that's so heavy all the time, we wear it. We slouch. Mm-hmm. We look negative. We have that not so pretty look on our face. Mm-hmm. But if you can just smile a little bit and think about something positive that happened in your day, when you focus on that, really changes the tone of your life.
I'm so excited you took a second part. This was even better than the first part. So again, I want you to get the book. You can just click down below and get the book that, of course, through her good times and bad, she wrote, Andrea. It's called Live Your Playlist. It is a short read, a fast read, but an impressive read of life's examples of success, real success, not her victory of being the TV personality traveling to Bora Bora and all over the country, but truly success from the ashes of what happened to her in her life. You've got to read this. Send her a message. Go to her Facebook. Go to her blog. They're all beautiful pictures of her, but you'll see the beautiful that I see in her since the first day I met her. The beauty inside Andrea has now been put on paper, and it has given her life back, but now it can give you a lot of life and wind in your sails. So please get this book, get on the Facebook, contact her and tell her what the difference is in your life, because that's what we do these things for, is the rewards of hearing your life has been changed. So Andrea, this has been more than a delight. Again, I'm going to call upon you to do more of this with us, and I know that people may want you to speak, and they can contact you about your speaking engagements all over the country. I'm just so grateful you've been with us.
Oh, I'm so grateful that you allowed me to speak to your audience and to take the time to talk with me, and your interest in everything that I'm doing. And I feel like that's the purpose, is to just pass along, the knowledge that we all learn through our pains in life. And my hope is to inspire and motivate and empower the people who I talk to.
You're on the right program. This is perfect.
I know that.
You're listening. I want you to remember this in eons from now. You've got to remember this no matter what. Remember that beauty and change begins within. That's what we've been talking about in two major segments and in most of our inspirational interviews. But it's important that you understand that. Take that in for a moment. Right now, as Andrea said, take it in and just let it feed your soul. Take some of the principles that she's given us that really talk about closing down your circle, making it a cheerleading circle for you. Get your body in shape, even if it's as the minor, getting up and bending and stretching. And then for sure, start to give gratitude for something. Seek something, whatever it is, find that good. Find that perfect little moment even that you can just breathe deep and say, I'm grateful. And until then, remember again, beauty and change begins within, and that begins with you. I'm Jeffrey Paul, and my wonderful, I'm going to call you my co-host at this point.
Okay, that's cool. I'll be your co-host any day.
So thank you, and write in and let us know your comments and what you thought about this. We'll pass them on to Andrea as well.